Elon Musk, the world's wealthiest man and a self-proclaimed libertarian, is purchasing Twitter for $44,000 million. He says he's doing it to protect free speech, and that free speech is the bedrock of a functioning democracy. I agree with the statement, but I'm not so sure he does. As has been covered by multiple outlets, Musk's notion of free speech doesn't seem to extend to his workers, whom for starters he signs to strict non-disclosure and anti-defamation contracts with no end date, so that they can never say negative things about Tesla's working conditions after they quit or are terminated. But let's delve more deeply into notions of democracy and liberty. People like Musk like to pretend that democracy has always meant a political process outside the economic realm. But from the start of the industrial era, the two notions were deeply intertwined. The idea, just like in politics, was that if large companies were going to take over from self-employment, the workers would of course have to have basic democratic rights in the places in which they worked. Chief executive officers and boards of directors, should such things be necessary, would of course have to be elected by and accountable to the people who worked in the companies. That was the tradition of the Knights of Labor, who considered themselves Republican Americans, arguing for self-governance in politics and self-governance in the workplace, and had 750,000 members by the 1880s. It was also the black cooperative tradition, which W.E.B. Du Bois dedicated so much of his scholarship to. But it was also the tradition of practically all the leading, most canonized, least marginalized individualist thinkers of the industrial era. Consider John Stuart Mill, author of On Liberty and Principles of Political Economy. Mill is considered bedrock in libertarian philosophy, but he was arguing for worker cooperatives, not capitalist corporations, saying, "The form of association, however, which if mankind continue to improve must be expected in the end to predominate, is not that which can exist between a capitalist as chief and work people without a voice in the management, but the association of laborers themselves on terms of equality, collectively owning the capital with which they carry on their operations, and working under managers elected and removable by themselves." Or how about John Dewey, the leading American pragmatist, who spent his whole life arguing that democracy was not in reality what it was in name until it was industrial as well as civil and political? Or how about Bertrand Russell, who won the Nobel Prize for championing free thought and expression? Russell watched a brutal industrial capitalism descend into the First World War. In Political Ideals, he wrote like Dewey and Mill before him, "Every limited liability company is run by a small number of self-appointed or co-opted directors. There can be no real freedom or democracy until the men who do the work in a business also control its management." Keep in mind that Russell et al. Were not talking about merely having a seat at the table or even union representation. Democracy meant no division of workers and owners, no workers being organized from above to labor for the profits of the owners, every worker having a democratic vote where they worked. As I have covered elsewhere, democratic business models continue to have above-average rates of success to this day, and some of them are very large scale, like Ocean Spray, the Mondragon Cooperative Corporation, and the John Lewis Partnership. Bertrand Russell's advice to switch to real democracy looks like it could have saved us a lot of trouble in hindsight, and could save us a great deal more moving forward. We should discuss it freely and openly. Just don't expect to read much about it in Elon Musk's corporate non-disclosure contracts.